Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Beaumont's Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, April 15th. My name is Councillor Penrod, and it's my honor to chair the meeting tonight. We begin, as always, with our land acknowledgement. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people and the land. We proceed to item 2 on our agenda, the adoption of the agenda. I'm not aware of any additions or deletions. Do I have anyone willing to move? Mayor Daniluk? Mayor Daniluk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move that the April 15, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be adopted as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we activate the vote, please? Thank you. The motion carries unanimously. And that takes us to the adoption of the minutes. Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes, please? Mayor Daniluk?
Sure, I'm on a roll. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll move that the March 18, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes be adopted as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we open the voting? Thank you. Looks like Councillor Munkoff-Swain. Yep. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to open forum. Ms. Dargis, do we have any guests registered for open forum this evening?
No, Chair. We have no registered open forum presentations.
Thank you. Moving right along to item 5, presentations and delegations. And I believe that's Mr. Do you need sorry, I can't see your...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Administration is here this evening to present to the committee information on the changes, the recommended changes to the 2026 budget process. I have a very brief presentation to highlight some of those changes, and I'll be happy to take questions at the end. So the agenda, 3 slides. So we're going to focus on telling the story, and then solutioning through striking the balance, and then look at the timeline of how that would look. Really, one of the main drivers of the changes that I'm recommending is around telling the story. So as I look back at the way that we presented the budget last fall, just after I arrived here, we had a very brief, like 20-minute presentation and did the very highlight Coles notes of what the budget document was, and then we sent council away to digest that information and then come back and solution the budget, as it were. We're going to take a different tack this year. The idea is to take a different tack to focus on the narrative. We want to improve on the way that we tell the story. We want to look at it from a corporate overview. We're going to look at the macro environment. We're going to look at what the economic pressures are, some of the trending that we've done. And then we really want to get into the department presentations. And I think that really that was something that we really could have benefited from last year through the process, as we talk about the service demand and the service level, both pressures and opportunities that each department faces and has faced since really one of the major changes was since COVID, right? So as everybody came through that situation, the economics presented themselves in a different way, and so we've been working very diligently within managing pressure since that time, but I don't think that we could do a better job of telling that story to the residents and to council, just to demonstrate the things that we've done and the things that we're doing and where we're going to take that in the future. After we do that, really it comes down to, it's a very simple lever situation. You have on one side tax rate, on the other side you have services. And you can't, I know there's a ideology out there that you can lower the tax rate and increase service at the same time. That's not a truth in the long term. You could fabricate a short-term solution where sometimes that can look possible, but the long-term consequences mean that with higher service comes higher taxes, with lower service comes lower taxes, and that's how that relationship works. And so we're really going to work on what that means at a department level and operation level to the organization, and then provide council with some options, right? So administration could do this, and here's the financial outcome of that and the service outcome, and then we could provide council a menu of options to choose from to come to striking that balance of appropriate service for appropriate tax rate, right? And so that's what we want to arm council with, is kind of have that toolkit for you guys to be able to make those decisions. And so that we'll focus on some financial challenges and solutions that we need to look at. We'll talk about opportunities for revenues, and then ultimately the last lever that we have is service levels. Now, to facilitate this process, administration is recommending a number of changes. So what we would like to do on November 7th, at the end of the orientation for the election is on the 28th, and there's a number of days of training and orientation, and so at the very end of that session, administration would like to present to the council of the whole, or the committee of the whole, pardon me, in closed session, the high-level budget overview, right? And so getting into the details, talking about some of the challenges that we're facing, what is the economic situation, what is the tax rate that administration is recommending, all of those things, and present it to council and allow council an appropriate amount of time to digest that information, think about what questions we want to answer or ask, without any outside influence or pressure. So recognizing that it would be in closed session and that it's to give council the time to digest and appropriately prepare for those questions without public pressure or opinions. We don't want people racing council to the end of the materials when you haven't had time to appropriately look at them and be prepared to be pressured into conversations that you're not ready to have. Then on November 19th and 20th, and again, we will be recommending 2 daytime sessions where administration would present the budget. We would again do the closed session version so that for full transparency, the public would know all of the things that we talked about as far as the closed session. And then get into the department presentations where we will present and talk about those service levels, talk about those challenges that we've had over the last few years, talk about options to solution, and give a full in-depth conversation. And then one of the larger wrinkles that I'm hoping to introduce this year is live questions. So we'll present by department. We'll present the corporate budget at the beginning. You can ask high-level questions. We will answer questions. The idea is that we want to create a dialogue and opportunity to pull on threads or strings that present themselves, rather than this old version where you guys looked at the materials, presented or compiled 20 pages of questions, often similar. Generally, the thing was, I asked this, and it was almost the same as that, but not quite as the same, so now I have to answer 2 questions, and so on and so forth. So rather than create that inefficient process, to have the live dialogue, follow-up questions, to be able to have that educational conversation that I think has been well received, that, oh, I understand where you're trying to go with this question, where maybe I misread it or misunderstood it when we were looking at the written version, and allow for follow-up questions. So that conversation of 2 daytime sessions, presenting the budget, answering questions, taking questions, and you will come up with questions that we can't answer. Or on the spot, I'm rephrase. We can answer the questions, but we might need time to take them away, right? So, and we'll be very clear, okay, that's a really good question. That requires a little bit of further research and digging to compile our pieces. We'll bring that back to you at a later date. Our written submission, you'll have it all in time for the later dates, but in order to 1, be more efficient, and 2, to be more transparent. The residents are probably going to get a lot more information from watching and hearing the presentation than trying to read the budget document and all the subsequent questions later on. I have to work with them, and 20 pages of questions is very hard for me to slog through, and so the idea is that it should be more accessible and more transparent for the residents. So that'll help part of that conversation that we're trying to create. So that's the 19th and 20th, and then on November 22nd, to be confirmed, but that's the Mayor's Town Hall, so the budget will be fully presented to the public by then, and then the public can engage council and provide thoughts and feedback. And then we come on the 26th and 27th, and we'd be happy to take any more follow-up questions, address any of the written questions that we had to bring back from that time, so that council feels fully armed and comfortable with all the information that is required, and then begin deliberations. And so again, that would be daytime deliberations, and we would be seeking to get budget approval at the close of that meeting rather than waiting 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever it was last in the fall for formal approval. And you might wonder what the significance of that is, but if I can get an extra 2 weeks to start grant applications, procurement, contracting, if we can get to market first, get grant applications confirmed and stuff, that allows administration to start actioning and moving that piece along, which can have a benefit both of getting things done sooner, but also we might get a better price at market if we're ahead of, say, other municipalities, whereas opposed to being caught in the glut if we're late at the end, right? Then we just are price takers at that point. So that's a very high level of what we're trying to do or recommending to do this year. We're looking to get some feedback. In the report there were some other options, but I'm not speaking to those today. This is the recommended option that we'd like to approach, and if council has any, or the committee has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bohachuk. Questions? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. In that schedule, I didn't see any time contemplated for any public can come and ask questions and administration, and public can come and ask questions and administration and is around to answer questions from the public. Can you comment on that? It's a historical thing that we did, and then we didn't do post-COVID, and then we brought back again, and it was just council, which surprised me at the time because I thought administration was going to come as well. But in this process, there's lacking any place or room for the community to come and bring questions into administration.
I looked at my partners, but my general experience has been that generally administration has been present. In my past, we've had public hearings where residents can have 5 minutes and speak to council on their thoughts and opinions on the thing, but administration has never taken questions directly from residents. So that might be a different thing, but that's not my experience. So look to the Chief Commissioner.
Thank you. CEO Schwartz.
Yeah, administration sees very little value in that public consultation. It was always the same 8 people who showed up. Impacted very little on the budget. There are other ways of both posting the budget and seeking that sort of feedback. So in the interest of being effective, council chose, I believe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, to host their own sessions to provide the public with that opportunity, but we just didn't see it as being effective.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll take that feedback back, and we can, I guess council can noodle that about, and if someone has a motion, or I may bring one to add that to the process. I think we've heard loud and clear from the public in the last 3 weeks that there's a required voice in process, and I think it's missing here, so I'll just leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk. I have Councillor McCook and then Councillor Nantellenbos.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. And I just want to say that I appreciate the efforts to want to focus on the story piece of it. I think that's really important. And I think that that is a bit of what we've missed in our past budgets and the technicality of it all. And we've missed the story as to the financial pressures that not just our city, but most cities are facing. And I'm hoping that some of the storytelling will help with kind of the long-term view as well. And to help show how some of the decisions made today will either help or hinder that long-term sustainability of our city. So just a couple questions. Mine was a little bit similar to Councillor Van Newkirk's, just in that between November 19th to the 26th, it just feels a little bit tight in the sense that potentially we may have new councillors at the table. Therefore, if there are questions that aren't, and I know it was in the report here, that if there are questions that aren't able to be answered in the live session, there will be written responses that can be given. Just my concern is that if written responses are given a couple days later, then that doesn't allow for very much time to then, be able to get the responses, digest, and then be ready for budget on the 26th, given that there's also a weekend in between there. In addition to that, same thing to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's point, just with there's not much opportunity, I think, for council on their own, administration aside, to gather some of that public feedback from between the 19th to the 26th. So if you do have new councillors up here, I'm cognizant of that, that there isn't much time for them to digest, gather feedback, and then prepare for that budget process. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to move that November 19th, 20th to a little bit earlier. I'm not sure, but that's kind of my food for thought. Otherwise, I do like the process. I think it will serve us well to try something different and to kind of go in this direction. And I think it'll be good to ask those live questions to avoid some of that duplicative effort, because that did definitely happen quite a bit. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCook. Over to you, Councillor Natellenbos.
Perfect. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Obviously, this is one of the most important things that we run through on an annual basis. Just a couple notes here. I guess first off, I do appreciate the clarity that's being presented. I know some of the concerns from previous budgets was just the lack in definition and clarity in some of the items that were presented. Just based on my short experience with what you've presented in front of council, I really do appreciate the thoroughness and your ability to explain with high definition exactly what we're looking at. So I'm actually really looking forward to this budget and the presentation you put forward. I do know in the presentations we had as council members and that sit down with the public, it was highly valuable, but there was a lot of concern, because we weren't necessarily informed with that high level of detail on some of the items, so it would have been nice to have administration present to clarify some of that stuff, and that was a concern that did come from the public. I think that public consultation, A, from obviously the councillor side, but B, from administration, actually provides a lot of benefit. I do have a question in terms of the questions in the, I guess, method that's proposed here. I know it's noted that if an answer can't be provided immediately, then it would be provided in writing later. Could all of the questions be documented at the end and provided in writing later as well, just as a reference document, so that everything's clear as opposed to just the ones that couldn't be answered?
Through the chair. So we could, I'm sure, make a transcription of the council meeting at some point after when it's all done. I don't know if we'd be able to do it live and have it written and done by the time budget approval's happening. That would require significant resource and time and effort. So but I'm sure that from a minutes perspective, we could provide, go through and have all the questions that were requested or made and document that. I'm sure that could be done.
Thank you. CEO Schwartz.
Yeah, just further to that, in the discussions we've had with Jay before, the option, if you recall during the budget deliberations, there were a number of questions that were asked, and within an hour we had the answer. So we will have staff. That's one of the advantages of being a daytime session, is we will have staff on standby, so we will quite likely be able to get the answer to you before the session's over, and then, like Jay said, we could transcript it if we needed to.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, just because a current approach, again, maybe not the most effective, but it is nice to have those written responses and we can analyze it and obviously reflect on them. Other question I had, and it somewhat relates to Councillor McCook's comments, just looking at the three options, I see option 3, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but we would be able to publicly release the budget November 10th. However, if we go with the proposed option, we cannot publicly release the budget until the 19th. Am I correct in saying that?
Through the chair to Councillor Tellenboss, we could find a happy medium somewhere in there. The idea is, especially considering could be new council or new members of council, that there's going to be a little bit of a fire hose effect from the date of election. If you're new to the bench, all the training orientation, and then to have budget thrust upon you, just time to process. I would like to at least give a couple days. We could maybe do the public, at least online release to the public. The challenge that I personally have with that is context. Okay, so part of the piece when we're presenting the budget in closed session to you, we're giving the right context and emphasizing the right pieces that you need to be aware of and that are really important, as opposed to if you just read it yourself and interpret it a different way, right? So we provide you context in the closed session, we give you the material, so now you have able to really read into it rather than interpret it incorrectly, and then there's a public or a social media storm or something because administration hasn't had the opportunity to present it in open session. We've just provided the materials in open session and they may not be understood or can be misconstrued. So that's the risk that I'm trying to mitigate with having it, that it's released as we're about to speak to it and it's provided with context and not taken out of context.
Perfect, thank you. And I do appreciate that.
Councillor Natelbas, I'm just going to give Ms. Morrison a chance to answer as well.
Yes, thank you. As well, those 2 days would be considered a regular scheduled council meeting. So the agenda, which would have the budget, would be released prior to those days. And Ms. Dargy can add to that if I'm saying anything incorrect.
So the dates that the budget would be presented and questions would be asked, those are, as Ms. Morrison said, regular council days. They will be live streamed, they will be recorded, so all of that information will be there for reflection as well.
Perfect, thank you. But in terms of presenting the budget to the public, that would not be released on November 7th, and as opposed to the third option here where it would be released November 10th, correct?
Yeah, so the third option is status quo with no presentations and that piece. So that's if there was no interest to have those kind of presentations, then we would just go the other direction. Since we would not be presenting, there's no point in holding the budget from that perspective.
Absolutely perfect. I will, if I don't work with a fellow councillor here in terms of putting a motion together, I'll do it myself, but my only concern just lies with the limited ability for public engagement, basically between the 19th and 20th and the 26th and 27th. It would just be nice. I realize context is important and having that presentation is ideal, but I think we should get the budget into residents' hands and community members' hands as quick as we can, because a lot of the good conversation that I have stems from obviously conversation with the public, and if it's closed session, it's not really something we can talk about until the 19th and 20th, and I don't think that's fair. So I'd just like to see an adjustment in date similar to option 3 where it's released to the public a bit earlier, but I will address that later. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, sorry, and if I could just backtrack to Councillor McCook's comments on the dates. So we did look at spacing things out a little bit more favorable, but there is a large conference, I believe, the week in between, which is restricting moving the 19th, 20th up. We could potentially, if council wanted to make a suggestion or motion, to maybe move the 26th, 27th farther into December, but then you're losing some of that early granting, early procurement opportunities. So we did consider that when we looked at the timelines.
Thank you. So I have Councillor Monk of Swain next, and then Mayor Daniluk.
Yeah, thanks. I think maybe big picture. So first of all, this surprised me a bit. The mayor had solicited a lot of input from council previously and sent in some comments around what we thought would happen, including the open house that Steve mentioned. So I don't see that reflected in here. So my recommendation for us to take this away would be to circulate some formal feedback through you instead of one-off motions, just generally. My thoughts on this is that it's extremely quick. There will be new people up here, and I think even if not, I get what you're looking for to meet the timelines, but I would say if administration needs to hit the 26th, 27th, then I would say that administration needs to move their timelines up and release the budget much sooner, and have the public comment on it. And yes, there won't be context, and council won't be able to speak to it, and most likely before an election. But I think we always stand up here and we say, you know, it's unfortunate that there aren't residents in front of us here coming to engage with us on the budget, and we're going to give them 6 days to look at it. So yeah, well, the timing really surprises me, to be honest. I would much rather have this thing out early, open for the public. Doesn't have to be council until you get council in, but yeah, the public should have at least a lot more time than that to take a look at it before they get feedback. Have the open house information session, whether admin's there or not. We certainly, or those the councillors at the time, find that extremely valuable. And yeah, I just, that is tight. We're trying to do the opposite, and it just sends the wrong message. I know what you're trying to do. I know the dates you're trying to hit. I would just say, if you want to hit those dates, bring your budget process up earlier.
Thank you, Councillor Monkoff-Swain. Mayor Daniluk.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation and then the detail of what you're proposing. The big part of the challenge this year with the new orientation that's mandatory for all new councillors, that right after the election, within a week, you got 5 days of councillor training that's mandated by the government under the new process, which really throws off our timing somewhat. So I appreciate the challenge we have with the timing of this. My only suggestion might be, I know in the past, we've done the first meeting in December to officially pass the budget. You mentioned, Jay, that takes up some time for your grant and that sort of thing. I might suggest we may just have a special council meeting on the first Tuesday of December, which is the week after, and then 26, 27. It's only a week later, but it gives better than having 2 weeks later in past years. That's one option. I do like the 2-day session to really put council through the budget and giving us the big picture and the story and all the nuances. On November 22nd, we called it a mayor's town hall when we discussed the potential of what we're doing here, but that could be a public open house that night. And I think if we're having the 2 full days, 19th and 20th, to arm us with more information, we'll be better prepared at that open house this year coming up than we were last year, because the 2 days open session on the budget will give us more information. We'll be much more prepared for an open house. So I'm seeing some good things in this here. I appreciate an earlier timeline, but with the orientation for new councillors and existing councillors, that's mandatory right after the election. It really throws off our schedule. So I'm looking at, if it has to start November 7th, maybe pushing back the deliberation and the budget approval from the 26th, 27th to maybe that first Tuesday in December, possibly. Just a way of looking at this, but we can maybe take it away and do some digesting. But the open house could be on the 22nd after the 2-day of budget deliberations. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
If I
Thanks,
may
Mayor.
comment, Mr. Chair. So there are a number of options. So first, I just want to address that this November will not be the first time that the public has an opportunity to engage as far as the budget. So we are planning later on this year, we're going to be working on some communication pieces. We're going to be working on a survey that will help inform administration and council as to where the strategic priorities lie as far as services and taxes and so on and so forth. So that's coming soon. So that won't, it's not just going to be, we've done it in a vacuum and surprise, we show up in November and we didn't engage. So we will be engaging the public from that perspective. And then my peers are helping respond to some of the things. So as far as that early release date for the public perspective, we could maybe do some media and context pages, like a communication that goes out with it, a press release that highlights those things. So it's not out of context. We're not doing a full presentation, but maybe a shorter written one that might highlight some of the outcomes and pieces that we really want to stress, that we don't want people to get it wrong or misunderstand. So we can work on some of those pieces as well.
Thanks, Mr. Bohachek. And I think Ms. Dargis wants to bring some further color.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some information, thank you, Chair, that might help. The mayor already spoke to council orientation, so we can't bring anything earlier than that. Council orientation has to be completed before we can provide any kind of, before you can have any kind of meeting, right? Your regular meeting, your organizational meeting can be held at one point, and then there's another set of training that needs to be held before you can have a regular meeting. Also, the agenda for the November 19th and 20th, with just that option, will be published November 14th at the latest, so the public is aware of the document. So it gives council a week to digest it, to look at it, and to provide it before it is presented fully to the public through the agenda. So I just wanted to provide that information for your consideration as well.
Appreciate that, Ms. Dargis. And to Mayor Daniluk's point, there are several wrinkles that'll be new for everyone, new councillors, old councillors, administration alike, just under a new regime of rules from the province. So it's a challenge we look forward to navigating together as a community. We're on to round two for questions and comments. I'll just insert one of mine here. Mr. Bohachek, in your presentation under striking the balance, I think the last note there is regarding a toolkit for council. Just wondering, as you contemplate, I'm sure that's not built out yet, but as you contemplate what might go in there, my question or challenge is how much of that could also be, or maybe there's a separate toolkit for the public. But again, just pushing on that button of how do we engage the public more and better all along the way. And to your earlier point, this doesn't have to wait till October, November. Maybe we're doing some of that work in the spring, summer too, just building on work we've done in the past. So over to you if you'd like to comment further on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is more of a metaphorical toolkit as opposed to literally like this is the levers. So as we go through the conversation of department services, what we can do, financial levers, service levers, that's the toolkit. There's not an additional platform that is be like decision-making 101 for council or the public and stuff like that. So I don't want to be clarified that maybe I made it too literal as far as that goes from that perspective. From the other context of part of that communication piece that will be going out, we'll hopefully create some conversation through the spring and summer and be, oh, okay, that helps me understand, and no, I didn't realize this pressure, and so on and so forth. We'll be coming forth with a communication strategy to start those conversations, and so that it is not, again, a blind situation, and they will, hopefully will communicate to, everybody will understand the concept of the levers and the services and the correlation to taxes, right? And so that they can start making opinions made or known to about, oh, I prefer my services to stay, and if that means taxes are up, okay, or I'd prefer that, you know what, I'm okay with services coming down if it means my taxes are down. So that those conversations can start happening, and that will inform council through the year.
Thank you. All right, so back for round two, Councillor McCook, and then Councillor Van Newkirk, and then Councillor Munkoff-Swain.
Thank you, Chair. More just comments. When we look at the dates, the 19th, 20th, I'm not sure if it could be moved to the 17th, 18th. That's more just the beginning of the week, and then that gives 2 extra days. And then if we are talking about open houses, then we could do something, and to the mayor's point, you know, maybe it's not necessarily a mayor's town hall. I guess if the purpose of the town hall is just to inform the public of, you know, priorities and what's happening, that could be done through open houses and be done through, you know, 1 in the afternoon, 1 in the evening. So there's opportunities for people who are working and whatnot to attend. So that could be done either the 21st or the 22nd or both. But just trying to play around with those dates there. Food for thought. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor McCook. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, similar to Councillor McCook, I was going to lend my voice to the mayor's idea around that town hall, having some flexibility for open houses there between, you know, evenings, afternoons, something like that. I just really see the value in, you know, we will have the department presentations, the 19th, 20th, council can ask a bunch of questions and be there. And what I would say is last year we, council split to make sure that quorum wasn't the problem and attended sessions and we were short on answers. And I think if it's plumped in the middle between the 19th, 20th and the 26th, 27th, then it could be a little bit more of useful time spent. So, you know, unless there were to be a wholesale change of this, I'd be an advocate of making sure that there's an evening and an afternoon time period or an evening and a morning or something associated with that November 22. So I'll stop there, Chair.
Thank you. And I see Mr. Schwartz would like to give some clarity.
Yeah, it's interesting you would say that. That's the note that we've got thrown around here right now, is perhaps that November 22nd becomes the public consultation. And like you said, run 2 different sessions. And we're hearing this loud and clear, and admin will attend those sessions, so we'll make sure we have informed answers. What I left out earlier when I talked about the ineffectiveness of the public consultations previously is what we found was council didn't show up. We would have 1, sometimes 2, and that was it. So, you know, I'm hearing a much bigger commitment from this group, and that's encouraging, but we'll be there. We'll be there to back you up. We got to do this together.
Thanks, CEO Schwartz. And I would just respond to that saying, I don't think it's necessarily having the right answers. It's just, I think sometimes council has one basket of answers and admin has another basket of answers. We have kind of one set of information. We're teed up to answer one basket of questions, and admin is better located and situated to answer others that kind of press a bit more into operational issues. So that's, I think, where we felt the pinch last year, and glad to hear that commitment from administration. I think that strengthens the process all the way down. So thank you. Councillor Munkoff-Swain? No longer? Okay. So on the advice of the clerk, I don't think we need a motion to refer at this stage. There's some other dates that are being updated for the 2025 slot of meetings, and so we can roll these changes with some continuing back and forth into that future business at a council meeting. So I believe that brings us to the end of item 5.1. And I do think that we have a councillor inquiry queued up. So, Madam Clerk, if you could let me know when you've, Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Councillor inquiry tonight is related to notice of development. Please identify the available opportunities during the development approval process for complex development permits to include council in the notification and communication process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk. Any other councillor inquiries this evening? Hearing the way that this agenda will work this evening is we are proceeding into closed session shortly, at which point the live stream will be ended. There's no business coming out of to adjourn the meeting, and so we won't be restarting the live stream this evening. So if you've been joining us so far, look forward to hearing from you again in the future, and have a good night. I will entertain a motion to enter closed session. Mayor Daniluk, on a streak.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I move that the committee move into closed session at 5:39 p.m. pursuant to the Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, Sections 24 and 25. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And could we activate the voting, please? Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.